There is an ingredient in almost every bowl of pho served in Vietnam. It's in the broth. It's in the marinade. The vendor keeps a bag of it next to her salt, reaches for it the same way your grandmother reaches for pepper, and uses it without a second thought. In America, that same ingredient gets its own warning label. Restaurants advertise its absence like a badge of honor. Parents avoid it for their kids. And for decades, it carried an actual medical diagnosis, named after the cuisine that used it most. The ingredient is MSG. Vietnam never stopped using it. America decided it was dangerous. One of them was wrong. If you grew up in America, especially in an Asian American household, you absorbed this fear without anyone formally teaching it to you. MSG causes headaches, heart palpitations, that strange feeling after Chinese food. You ask the restaurant to leave it out. You choose the place that advertises it's gone entirely. It felt like settled science. It had a name in medical journals. It had institutional authority behind it. And for an ingredient with a chemical-sounding name attached to a cuisine that American culture had long treated as exotic, the fear spread fast and stuck hard. But here is what nobody said out loud. The same ingredient was already in your kitchen. It had been in American processed food for 25 years before anyone called it dangerous. Campbell's soup, frozen TV dinners, seasoning packets, Doritos. Nobody named a syndrome after any of those. Sit with that for a second, because that inconsistency is where this story actually begins. To understand how this happened, you have to go back to April 1968. The New England Journal of Medicine published a letter from a doctor named Robert Ho-Man Kwok. He described feeling weak, numb, and experiencing a rapid heartbeat after eating at a Chinese restaurant. He listed 3 possible causes: sodium, cooking wine, or possibly MSG, and offered his experience as a curiosity for other physicians. That letter was not a study, not clinical research. One man's anecdote. The journal titled it Chinese Restaurant Syndrome. Within months, other doctors were writing in with similar complaints. The media picked it up. Scientists rushed to research it. And MSG, sitting quietly in American processed food for 25 years, suddenly became a public health concern. But only when Asian cooks were using it. Think about what that means. The same white powder in a Dorito was fine. In a bowl of pho, it needed a warning. The ingredient didn't change. The kitchen did. This wasn't just a food myth. It changed how Asian restaurants operated in America. Owners had to choose between their culinary tradition and their commercial survival. Vietnamese and Chinese cooks spent decades defending an ingredient, removing it, apologizing for it, advertising its absence, because one anecdotal letter in a medical journal had decided their food was the problem. Not Italian food. Not French food, not American processed food, Asian food. MSG is monosodium glutamate, the sodium salt of glutamic acid. Glutamic acid occurs naturally in almost every protein-containing food on Earth. Tomatoes, mushrooms, soy sauce, breast milk. When your body processes MSG, it processes it identically to naturally occurring glutamate. There is no chemical distinction between the glutamate in a bowl of pho and the glutamate in a bowl of tomato soup made from scratch. MSG is not dangerous. The FDA says so. The WHO says so. Every major controlled trial says so. Specifically, the double-blind trials that found people who believed they were sensitive to MSG could not reliably identify it when they didn't know it was present. The science was never ambiguous. The fear was. And the 1968 letter that launched it was never more than one man's story. A story presented in a journal that should have demanded evidence before giving it a name. Some researchers have since questioned whether it was even written in good faith. But you don't need that dispute to see the problem. Even taking the letter at face value, it was an anecdote. And an anecdote became a syndrome. And a syndrome changed what Asian cooks in America felt allowed to put in their food for the next 50 years. Vietnamese restaurants in America adapted. They had to. No MSG appeared on menus across the country, not as a compromise, but as a selling point, a defense, a way of saying, we are not what you were warned about. The food changed, not in a way most diners could name, but MSG does something in a broth that nothing else replicates exactly: a savory depth, a roundness that makes the difference between a bowl that fully satisfies and one that doesn't quite close. Remove it, and the bowl still works. It just doesn't work the same way. But the cost was bigger than flavor. It was identity. Vietnamese and Chinese cooks in America spent decades modifying their food, their menus, and their public image to survive in a market that had been told their ingredient was a health hazard. They weren't adjusting for taste. They were adjusting for survival. And here is the part that is hardest to sit with. The ingredient they were pressured to remove was never the problem. The problem was the story that got told about it, and which kitchens that story chose to target. Vietnam never heard that story. Vietnam kept cooking, and the food here tastes the way it was always meant to taste. My mother made pho without MSG, because that was what you did in America if you were Vietnamese and you cared about your family's health. She was not wrong to worry. She was responding to what her adopted country told her. That country was wrong. Growing up Vietnamese American, I thought avoiding MSG was just part of being responsible. What I understand now, living here full-time, is that the fear was never evenly distributed. Nobody warned Americans about the MSG in their fast food seasoning. Nobody named a syndrome after the Italian restaurant. The suspicion landed on Asian food specifically, and Asian cooks in America carried that weight for 50 years, while the same ingredient sat undisturbed in the American processed food aisle. My mother cooked without it because she was told to. The vendor outside my apartment in Saigon uses it every morning because nobody ever told her not to. And one of them made a better bowl of pho? Somewhere in America right now, a Vietnamese restaurant has "No MSG" printed on its menu like an apology. And somewhere in Saigon, a vendor is reaching into that unmarked bag without a second thought, making a bowl of pho that tastes exactly the way it always has. One kitchen is defending itself. One kitchen never had to. The difference between Vietnamese food in Vietnam and Vietnamese food in America is not skill. It is not freshness. It is not some ineffable quality of eating food where it comes from. It is, in part, one ingredient that got removed from Asian kitchens in America because of a fear that was never scientifically justified. A fear that applied to Asian food specifically, while the same compound sat unbothered everywhere else. MSG is not dangerous. Vietnam never needed to be told. The question the history forces is an uncomfortable one. When we decide something is dangerous, are we responding to evidence, or to who is using it? Vietnam answered that question without meaning to. It just kept cooking. Did you grow up avoiding MSG? And does knowing where that fear actually came from change how you feel about it? The MSG story is part of a longer pattern. How Asian food in America got treated as suspicious in ways that Western food never was, and what that cost the people who made it. That pattern goes well beyond one ingredient. That's next.